Well, am I missing anybody from the commission? That's commissioners. And then Linda, would you introduce yourself and your team, please?
Yes. Hello again, everybody. Good morning.
Morning.
There's a thunderstorm about to run through, so I'm going to say this pretty quickly. My team is happy to be here with you today. We have, if you recall, Bernard Vilza and Jean McDonald from HED on this call. And then from the Trinitas side, you have me, Linda Irving, and you have Damien Van Meter. He is our executive, and I'm your development manager for the project we're going to review today.
Thank you.
Lucinda, feel free to let me know if you want us to get started or if you have some other things you have to cover.
Tom, did you have some opening comments, and then
Sure.
I can get into the case introduction?
Sure. For those who don't know, and for those who might be watching, the purpose of DDRC work sessions is for a very informal, roll up your sleeves dialogue between commission members and applicants in order to help more ensure that we move forward with a successful application in the coming DDRC hearing. So this format is going to be very different today because it's virtual. There was the desire to allow members of the public to make comment, which typically is not what we do in live work sessions. That has, in my time on the DDRC, it's never been the case. But we're making this kind of exception in this case. The way that we'll do this then, therefore, is Lucinda and the staff will manage the input from members of the public. We as commissioners and the applicant also, we won't interact. This is simply an opportunity for members of the public to make comments. After that's finished, we will, and I guess I should say that we're calling this this work session to order. But after that public input is made, then we will resume the work session, which will be between the applicants and the commission members. That conversation, there will not be public input during that, but then if time permits afterwards, we will end the work session, and there will be an opportunity for members of the public to make comments, and commissioners are invited to stay on the line for those comments, certainly encouraged to. So that's the format we're going to proceed with, and I'll hand it back over to Lucinda at this point. We'll resume the work session after Lucinda runs through the public comment portion.
Okay, thanks. I'll just do some introductory comments, and then we'll open it up for public comment. And I'll put the agenda up for while I'm giving the introduction. So to introduce the case and just kind of bring everybody up to speed, since it's been a few months since we've been together to look at this. The proposal is for an 8-story multifamily residential building with below-grade parking. The site is located at 1600 Gervais Street at the southeast corner of Gervais and Pickens within the City Center Design Development District. The project was originally before the commission in January. At the March 12th hearing, the DDRC approved the site plan for this project and made a motion to defer a decision for certificate of design approval. The motion included appointing a subcommittee to work with the applicants on design solutions that could better address a number of the design guidelines where there were outstanding concerns, which I'll outline in a moment. This is the sole purpose of today's meeting. No formal actions will be made by the commission. The project will come before the commission for action at a later date, possibly in July. And I would just like to clarify, there was some confusion about the advertising and the posting of the case. We did advertise this for the June DDRC meeting before we really knew when we were going to be able to get the subcommittee scheduled. There was a chance we could have it far enough in advance to get this on the June agenda. That did not happen because the meeting is tomorrow. So anyway, it was advertised, but we've withdrawn it from the June agenda, so it will not be on tomorrow's hearing. It will be on July. And then I'd like to reiterate a point that Tom made. The work sessions of the DDRC have always been informal working meetings between commissioners and applicants, which are open for attendance by the public to maintain transparency. with the understanding that the public will have opportunities to comment at scheduled hearings where decisions are being made. Some projects which are not in design review districts have gone through different processes to garner neighborhood support and have included resident input into design concepts, among other things. While staff encourages developers to communicate with residents about their projects and is fully supportive of collaborative efforts, the DDRC is a quasi-judicial body and is limited to evaluating a project based on the specific guidelines adopted for the district. And the items that were articulated as outstanding concerns by commissioners at the March hearing were as follows: that it pushes the boundaries of the guidelines, it's at the edge of the district in a gateway location. While technically within the allowable envelope, it pushes the boundaries of height and mass. The entrance is not at the corner. The visibility of the south side of the building is prominent. The depth of the facade elements, the percentage of glazing being below what's recommended, and a lack of information about storefront details. So we're going to open the public comment period, and I do want to remind everybody that we're limiting this initial portion to 15 minutes, but I'll quickly run through the ways in which people can participate. There's a way to watch, obviously, the, the proceedings. People can phone in, log into a web session, or send an email. So if somebody wants to watch the meeting, they can stream it through city television at www.youtube.com/user/Columbia SC Government. If somebody wants to send an email, the public may submit letters and statements to cocboardmeeting@columbiasc.gov leading up to and or during the meeting. The account will be monitored. However, in an effort to be efficient with our limited time, emails and letters will be acknowledged and will be provided to the DDRC members in advance of the forthcoming public hearing for this case. So we're not going to read a bunch of letters and emails. We just don't have time for that today during the work session. And the phone number to call in is 855-925-2801. And the meeting code is 9078. And there are a few options when you get on that line. *1 will allow you to listen to the meeting over the phone. *2 will allow you to record a voicemail message that will be read into the record. And *3 will allow a participant to be placed in a queue so they may speak live when prompted. And please keep your comments to 2 minutes. We have several staff, pardon me, assisting with this process, and we will cut people off at the 2-minute limit so that we can really be efficient about this. And then if people want to stream the meeting via the web, it's www.publicinput.com/COC-DDRC-June Subcommittee. And so with that, I'm just going to have the agenda up here while we go through our public comments. And I think we had some letters that were received yesterday and this morning, which have been forwarded to the commissioners. I think John was going to at least tell us about who sent a letter.
Sorry about that. Listen, it took me a minute to unmute myself.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. And let me figure out how to get to those letters and get out of this full screen mode. There we go. So we have 4 letters as of this time. Those are from the University Hill Neighborhood Association in conjunction with Historic Columbia and the University of South Carolina. And those were, there was a letter sent yesterday and it was updated today. And that letter has been received by all of the commission members. There is a second letter that was from the David E. Massey Law Office from Mr. Massey. And that also was forwarded to the commission members, I believe, yesterday. And we have a third letter that is from Trinity Partners. And that was forwarded to the commission yesterday for their consideration. And then the fourth letter was from NAI Columbia, which was signed by Peyton Bryant, and that was also forwarded to the commission yesterday. So If I need to read those, let me know, but I think they've all been forwarded, so there's ample time for everyone to read them ahead of time. And at this time, we don't have any emails that have come into the COC email list at this time, Lucinda.
Okay, great, thanks. And I guess, Andrew, do we have anybody who's ready to speak live or a voicemail?
Hi, Lucinda.
Yeah.
Yes, we do have a hand raised to speak. However, I would like to just take a moment to mention that the audio quality on the dial-in to the meeting was actually kind of poor in the initial moments of the meeting.
Okay.
So the callers may not have heard the scope of this meeting when you were going over that. The audio quality does seem to have improved, so I can hear you just fine now.
Okay.
But I would just like to take this moment to also remind folks that if they do want to speak, they would press *3, and if they would like to leave a voicemail, they can press *2.
Great, thank you.
But that said, if I don't know if you want to go over the scope or if you want me to patch through the first caller. I believe it would be Mr. Tom Gottschall.
Okay, thanks. Let's just go ahead with the call.
Okay, here you go.
Good morning. This is Tom Gottschall. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Members of the commission, good morning. I am appearing for myself and the University Hill Neighborhood Association. Our neighborhood, of course, adjoins the block on which this project is located. I have made comments in the past, submitted a letter this morning, and we want to note our objections from the past regarding the procedure and also the statement that the height of the building was not relevant. Let me just make a few points. I think at this work session, we could hope that there could be some moving together, some concessions, and I think the focus on this ought to be an amendment to these plans to reduce the height and the number of stories of this building, as well as talk about the glazing and also the facade that faces or will face the neighborhood. I want to just point to guideline 5.3.1, which says, as a general rule and consistent with zoning provisions, buildings within most of the city center should be no more than 5 stories, yet this is 8. And so regarding mass, scale, and height, this doesn't work. Guideline 5.2, for example, says that the building should be sympathetic, compatible with surrounding buildings in terms of mass, scale, and height. And 5.3.1 that the building should relate to adjacent development. If we look at the adjacent development, and I've sent pictures, we immediately have the old Christian Science Church, but right beyond that, McMaster College. That really is a 3-story building. There's a base course, midsection, and third floor windows.
Mr. Gottschall, pardon me.
Hello?
Hello, this is Amy. I'm holding the timer for public comments. You just hit your 2-minute mark.
Okay, may I have just another moment and I'll be finished then?
I'll give you 1 more minute.
Thank you. Again, the point that we would like to ask is that there be an amendment that reduces the height. You look at the McMaster College, you look at the Bell South building, the law school itself, all are focused on 3 floors, yet this is 8. Since this is the Gateway Street, it's the formal front door. We ask that you work with Trinitas to reduce the size, to deal with the glazing, and have a facade that faces us that is appropriate. Thank you.
And Lucinda, this is Andrew Livingood again.
Yep.
I currently do not have any. Oh, I do not have any speakers that have indicated they wish to speak.
Okay.
I believe Mr. Gottschall had said that he would like to speak at the end of the meeting as well.
Okay, thanks. John, do you know if any more emails have come through?
Lucinda, no, I do not have any more emails at this time.
All right. Well, then I guess we can get on with the work session.
Very good. In that case, let's start the work session. Typically how we do this is, and again, this is a very informal process, and I would encourage everybody, all of the commissioners and the applicants, especially those commissioners who haven't done an in-person work session where the feel of the thing is obvious, where we're all sitting around a table together. The purpose of this is to be not formal, not like a hearing, opportunities for the public, for public input, and dialogue with the commissioners and with the applicant will be afforded everyone when this project comes back to a hearing. This is not that. This is just an informal meeting to try to work through some of the issues that have been discussed in the past and to see where the applicant, I presume that you've made some revisions in light of the comments that were made. So with that, typically, and I'll do it right now, turn it over to you to present whatever you would like, and then we'll just start the conversation.
Thank you very much. So I'm really happy that my team is here today to work with you on not only the design progression from the beginning to where we were, but then having taken your comments from our public hearing and worked our plan and improved it substantially based on those comments. We feel very good about where we've landed, and we are receptive to interaction with you. The way we had thought we'd go through this today is Bernard Vilsa will walk us through the plans, first submission and the first round of improvements, and then walk you specifically through the improvements we've made since we met last. Feel free at any point, to interject or stop or ask a question. However, if you would like, we can let him kind of walk through the entire set of revisions and improvements and then go back, and we're happy to allow you to take control of the screen if you need to point out anything in particular, or freestyle dialogue about where you feel the design has gone. And if you we'll have a couple things that are options that we would like you to consider and give us feedback on, one versus the other, to see where you feel the best design, where we could land the best design. So I'm going to turn it over to Bernard because this is really his baby, and I'll let him kind of walk you through the plans. And again, feel free to raise your hand or stop us at any point.
All right, thanks. Okay, Bernard, you're on.
Good morning. I hope everyone can hear me. I'll share my screen. The way I was hoping that we would do this, and if you want to propose something better, I'm completely open to it. I'm going to start with a starting slide, and then I'm going to split the screen side by side to go through the schemes where we were on March 12th, and then where we ended up for this work session, and along with our studies. And then I have a walkthrough model at the end that we could just go in and try to zoom in and get up close to some of the issues that we are discussing, or the points of talk. So as a starting slide, this is a side-by-side sort of comparison to kind of recap the comments that we have gotten on both hearings in the past. The January 9th comments and the March 12th comments. We should mention there was a point made in the last hearing that on the very first hearing, we were seeing an updated version from what we submitted. So I would like to go back to that and share with everyone what we submitted on December 4th for the January 9th hearing. And this is the scheme. The scheme up to the left is what we submitted on December 4th, 2019 for the January 9th meeting. And we received comments from staff to increase the depth at the elevator and stair base. We were, at the beginning, we're showing 1 foot depth, and we were asked to increase that. We were asked to increase or treat the window depth at the field conditions and pull the brick on Gervais and Pickens sides up to the top floor, and possibly connect the two bays, number 4. And then extend the brick around the corner to the south facade. So this is the original scheme that was submitted. On the right side, you'll see the scheme that was updated with those comments, the recommendations made by staff. And then the comments, just a recap of the comments on 312 was to restudy the glazing percentages on Pickens and Gervais to get closer to the guidelines. Study the corner at Pickens and Gervais at ground level, increase the brick material and the level of detail in the back, in the south facade, which is our backyard. With that in mind, I'm going to share my screen side by side to talk about the two schemes. So again, on the left, you'll see the submission at December 4th, 2019, and the updated on January 9th on the right side, and March 12th, which was the same scheme that was presented. With that in mind, you'll see here we kept the brick one level lower just to kind of decrease, try to decrease the mass, but there was a staff recommendation and desire from the city to pull the brick back up, and you'll see on the right side that that's what we did, and we tied the bays, the two brick bays in a way on Pickens and Gervais facade. Everyone has seen the image on the right, and maybe some people have not seen the submission that was made on December 4th. So we just wanted to dial back. This is a side-by-side comparison of the two schemes from Pickens and Senate Street. You'll see the two differences on the top floor. Another perspective from Senate Street and Henderson Street. Again, we would like to point out those differences and the changes that were made by staff recommendations. And then a side-by-side elevation comparison. Again, the initial intention was to kind of change the proportion of the materials to kind of decrease the scale at the top floor, while the common desire was to pull the brick back up, and we're quite happy with that direction where it went. This is the south side facing McMaster's building, about side-by-side comparison about how they relate to each other. And this is the last of the images for the January 9th scheme. And with that in mind, I'm going to move over and share our work session scheme with our March 12th scheme. So again, the comments that we picked up this time after the March 12th hearing was to restudy the corner, restudy the glazing percentages that we have on Pickens and Gervais. We studied the storefront approach and the south side sort of design to be able to have the same level of detail as the north side on Gervais Street side has, and because the view is it's so prominent. So a side-by-side comparison, you'll see that we started on adding the glazing. Again, always on the right will be the newest scheme. So we for staff recommendations, we added more glazing to our living room conditions, and we enlarged the bedroom windows as well. Later on, you'll see a side-by-side comparison about the square footages, but we went from a 6x6 living room window to an 8x7 living room window, and then from 3x6 bedroom window to a 4x6 bedroom window to get closer to the glazing percentages. And we reworked that on the Pickens and Gervais side. On this, look, there should be the image there. There it is. This is the same perspective from Pickens and Senate Street. Again, I would like to point out how we treated the south facade. We added more brick material to relate to the Gervais Street side, and we increased the depth substantially to the back to be able to comply with the staff recommendations, which we think make for a better project as well. So we placed the brick on the corner next to McMaster's building, which would face our backyard. And the reason we did it to the corner was to kind of help ground the building, and it's a prominent corner, and it will help to define the extent of the building mass in that way. The next image shows the same perspective comparison from Center Street and Henderson Street. Again, we'll see that we extended the brick off to the corner, and then we added more brick into the other corner extent right next to McMaster's building to relate to the material palette that McMaster's has. Before, we used to have a secondary color of a field material. This is a side-by-side comparison of the elevations. Again, I would like to point out that Gervais Street side, we increased the glazing substantially. We increased the bedrooms and the living room windows. You'll see here that we went from a 3x6 bedroom window to a 4x6 bedroom window, and from a 6x6 living room window to a 7x8 living room window. We used to be at 27% glazing on Gervais Street side, and now we are at 33.2% glazing. The recommendation is, after talking with Lucinda and staff, the recommendation was to be upper 30s. And then on Pickens Street side, we were at 37% glazing, and currently with this new proposed scheme for this work session, we are at 38.5% glazing.
Can everyone see that okay, or do we need to zoom in more? I want to make sure that everyone is able to see the images well enough.
I can see them.
Yeah, I can see them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. The next image is the south side facade and how we are approaching the treatment in terms of adding more detail and adding more brick to kind of treat it with the same level of detail that the Gervais Street site has. So we, as mentioned before, we added the brick into the corner of the building right next to the McMaster's, and we added a substantial amount, we think, about 32 feet on each side of the corner to help ground the building and relate to McMaster's as close as possible into that backyard. And then the next images will show the level of detail that we added, but we also treated the brick with recesses to be able to give an extra layer of detail and sort of accentuate the depth a little bit. And then the corner changed a little bit, and we added a little bit more brick on that corner side as well. The next images will sort of zoom in into this facade side by side. So on the left, you'll see this is the level of detail that we're showing. We were treating, after the first round of comments from the city and the recommendations, we were treating the field condition details. We added frames around the windows to sort of increase the level of detail while adding another point of interest. And even with this new scheme, we're treating it exactly the same. What we want to point out next is that the south side, regardless of even previously, regardless of the materials that were used, it would still have the same level of detail and depth that we're showing on the Gervais Street side. But clearly, you'll see that we added the brick off to the corner, and we treated the windows with the same level of respect as we did into the Gervais Street side. And we can come back to any of this, and please interrupt me if need be. But with this in mind, I would like to now zoom in into some other views that our proposed scheme for this work session has.
I think if I'm hearing you correctly and want to clarify, now the south side has brick that wraps all the back corners, correct?
That's correct. Every corner is wrapped in brick on this south side right now.
Okay, we looked at it in snips, but I don't think we conveyed the full image. There you go. Okay.
Correct. Yes. So every corner that faces the public right away now is treated with brick and with detail accordingly. So that the same as our Gervais Street site. So let me go back to that image. So again, this is a recap. This is where we landed. This shows the increased glazing percentages, and the backside will have the south side treatment as well. We wanted to show this sort of dusk nighttime image to kind of emphasize the enhancement that we're clearly making to the sidewalk and what it would feel like from a pedestrian perspective to to be able to work down east on Gervais Street side, and since we're talking about a gateway corridor and a building that is very prominent on the side, we would like this to feel as transparent and as active as possible to add that extra level of security as you're walking down the street. And we think that it engages the street quite well. You'll also see, we're going to zoom in into the corners, but you'll see how we're treating the entrances and the corner and the level of detail that we're adding to the storefront at that point. Again, this one shows the extended percentages of glazing as well on these two sides. So when we zoom into this corner, this shows the previous scheme with the treatment of the corner. We just never showed anything up close to the commission and to the public. So we decided to create this one image, and we did variations of it. But we want to focus the attention on the enhanced pedestrian experience as you walk down the sidewalk. The sidewalk is 8 foot wide now, compared to what it is now, and the storefront sort of engages, the activity inside sort of engages with the pedestrian experience. And we started to highlight the corner. We did study to have an entrance at the corner, but from the building design perspective, it makes more sense for our entrance to be further down Gervais. Mainly the reason is because we're creating a very large drop-off for car share and Uber and Lyft and taxis and such. And if this was to be on the corner, it will really congest the corner of Pickens and Gervais. And because there is so much traffic on Gervais, we did want to sort of diminish or eliminate that problem right off the bat and create a much better user experience and a driver experience for that matter as well. But we did want to treat the corner with the same level of detail as our building entrance is, and we're highlighting it the same way. We're creating canopies, and we are lighting it in such a way to sort of to create the same experience as if the entrance were to be there. And from our perspective and from our residents' perspective, the entrance makes more sense next to the elevators, where I guess the staff in the building will be able to see them come in and out. They have access to the elevator right off the bat. And from a building user perspective, it made the most sense. But again,
let's pause there for just a second. So I think what we are stating is one of your primary points that you wanted us to address was how is this project compliant, and this corner entry language versus a presentation on the corner. And I think, again, with staff's input through this entire process, we absolutely wanted to respect the appearance of a entrance on the corner and activate that corner from both sides, Pickens and Gervais. So I believe what the team has done and worked with the planning department on is creating everything but a door at this location for a number of reasons. Like we said, it was kind of a logical associated with the drop-off for Uber, Lyft, taxis, any of those kind of elements. But we also want to come back to this and look at this lighting treatment that we have option 1 and option 2 with you to get your feedback. And as he's flipping, you can see some of the enhancements we made. We really would like to know if you feel like one or the other addresses that more strongly than another and enlivens that corner one way or another.
I think,
pardon?
I know I made a comment about the corner, and I never intended or ever thought that it would become the primary entrance to the building. I think where you have the primary entrance makes the most sense. I think probably the reason that there is no entrance to any kind of function at the corner is because in order to do that, you'd have to lose a unit or 2 units above that space. The concern I have is that the finished floor is actually below grade. And, I mean, if there were a way to just accept eliminating the corner units, which I guess you would call them at the second floor, in order to create a different function. It could be a convenience store, or I don't know what, or just another secondary way into the building. I mean, it would be normal for a building this size to have more than one way in from the street. or to have some kind of secondary program function on the corner. That's, we can't tell you what to do there, but it's, let me back up and say, I think that every step that Bernard has described is a step in the right direction. So, I think this is moving in a better direction. But my concern was, I never expected that you would redesign the building so that the primary entrance would be at the corner. But I was hoping that we would see a way in at the corner. And again, that would probably require eliminating a unit in order to get the headroom. But that's, that was my thinking.
Gotcha. Well, and Bernard's going to continue walking through, so we'll come back to this element and kind of get your opinion on the two ways of treating it. Bernard, I'm sorry I stopped you there, but I wanted to make sure.
No, absolutely not. No, this is great. And I think, one more time, just to add to the conversation, build up on what we talked about earlier. Again, these two schemes sort of show the glazing as it was, glazing as is. And the lighting treatment sort of adds another layer of depth into the building as well. With that in mind, the same level of treatment before and after on how we had the entrance, we kind of added more depth into the entrance and changed the canopy to make it feel a little bit lighter, showing that very large car share sort of drop-off area right in front of it. We think that this works well. When you walk from the corner of Peak and Gervais into the entrance, we feel that this works well, and the increased depth into this sort of large portal, we believe that it works, and it adds a good level of detail. And again, I have a model to walk us through each one of these. If there are any comments that I need to go back right now into the slides, I will. But for your convenience, we also have the model sort of ready to talk through it from a user perspective about what it would feel like to walk down the sidewalk and how it's treated. Again, we want to see the interaction of the storefront with the public right away in the sidewalk, and the increased depth of the sidewalk. And I'm sorry if this makes anyone dizzy. It's not my intention. But you'll see that the pedestrian experience is quite improved from this point of view. And I'm going to walk to the corner and try to talk there about your point, Tom. So again, just to kind of recap, we do feel like this experience and the building being set back to reach the height that we want. It's also helping the pedestrian experience at the sidewalk, so we don't have to be at the lot line anymore. We can be a little bit back. But yeah, let me know if I need to zoom in into anything or come back into any of the points that we talked. We want to highlight that we did add more brick into the back corner. Every corner is treated with brick in the same level of detail. The depth on the field materials is treated with frames and articulation around the windows, and the depth of the secondary dark material in the south facade has the same depth as the brick has on the north facade as well.
Bernard, can you walk us down the sidewalk as we are heading east?
Yes.
From the corner down the sidewalk, you turn to the entrance, and then let's look at how we end the building.
Sure. Right. So again, maybe these trees will be a little bit smaller when this building is first built, but this is the height that our landscape designers sort of envisioned for the trees and what should be along the corridor. But you'll see the sidewalk is 8 feet. This is our building entrance with a drop off. We have a double height space at the entry, and then as you walk through, that is the white wall down at the end is the car care at one floor. And then this is our generator location.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and then back. The east facade, the amount of brick hasn't changed there. It's not like we eliminated the brick somewhere else to put it in the back. We just added more brick to the back. The glazing has only been changed as per design guidelines on the Gervais side and the Pedestrian Street side.
Okay. I mean, as you walk down the sidewalk, and if I look at these dimensions of the living room windows, for example, they're practically floor to ceiling windows in the living rooms, providing a little bit of visual privacy. And then the bedroom windows at 4x6 are substantial for a bedroom window. So I think, team, where would you like to go from here? Or do you want to look at certain elements again? We would like your feedback on how we are treating the entrance with the lighting element. One is more traditional, one is a little bit more modern. Same thing with the corners. We talked about there's 2 ways of activating and lighting the corner. But I think we would welcome your feedback on what we've presented to you here, and I'm here to take notes.
I'd encourage other commissioners to comment before I make any other comments.
I like the traditional lighting, as you said. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I like the traditional lighting.
That's one.
More so than the modern, and is that because it's more subtle? One illuminates the corner a little bit at a little higher level than the other. So if you could help me understand what you're liking about it.
It just looked very calm looking.
Do the other commission members have an opinion on this one way or another?
It really matters. It's just my opinion. Either way would be fine. That's just my opinion from the traditional.
Anyone else?
I just want to echo and I agree with what Tom said on the corner. You know, I've been struggling with this, and you know, I understand that the guidelines really push towards an entrance on the corner, and I think it really warrants it in this case. You know, not the main entry, I understand, but you know, the height, finished floor being below the exterior grade gives it that extra available height, if you will, and if that could somehow be eliminated and create a usable space on the corner, it would really make me feel much better with respect to the guidelines.
When you say
and everything else, I mean, I really commend your effort. I really like what you've done.
I think we're saying create a space on the corner that the finished floor elevation is not below grade. With the possibility of actually placing a corner entrance to whatever that function would be, so that right now it's activated just in the sense that there's glazing, and I mean strictly from a compositional standpoint, in terms of form, you know, I appreciate what you're doing to create the illusion of a corner element, but the fact that it's below grade when you come to the intersection is just it's undeniable that that's going to be a little bit odd.
Well, I think the challenge is, and Bernard, correct me if I'm wrong, we have a 6-foot fall on this site.
Yeah, you would have to have a different finished floor height at the corner. It would be a different piece of function.
And we are able to get a set of stairs and a resident entrance at this corner. We just weren't sure what value that added. But it is possible. We talked about it and we said, does that make sense? Because this is a public resident zone in the space at that ground level. It's part of the I guess we'll call it the clubhouse element of the building. So we can get a door in there and would probably drop it down on the Pickens angle. And
I mean, to me, it's more of just an entry. I mean, I think, you know, I'm looking for some sort of public entry usable space on the corner at grade.
Even if it's used by the tenants, you know, I think you called it on your plan quiet zone. If that quiet zone could actually be at grade at that intersection, I mean, I know the grade changes slightly whether you're going down Gervais or Pickens, but at an established grade so that it feels as though it's engaged with the street rather than at you know, a lower elevation that's below the street. So
I
that actually,
think looking at a restricted resident entry can work. Functionally, you can't have two public entrances and have the proper security and the proper observation of the comings and goings. You primarily would want one public entry for all the residents that's aligned with the stair tower. But I think if we made a controlled entrance at that corner, badge, you know, if you're a resident, you can get in there. I think that is something we can absolutely look at doing.
I think that might actually be a you know, I'm sort of departing from our purview, but I think it also might actually be a you know, a feature that would be that the users would like if they can get, for instance, in with a card or however they're getting into the building and come directly in there, you know, meet their friends that are in the building, whatever. But if that's actually a way that the residents can come in at grade and have a 2-story high quiet zone or meeting area or whatever you want to call it, I think that would be also probably a nice feature for them. And it would help address the guidelines.
Yeah, doesn't the below grade corner elevation right there actually make the building higher than 75 feet if you include the distance below grade?
Bernard, can you identify
yes.
how you measure
Yes.
75 feet?
Yes. So the way the zoning ordinance asks for the height of the building to be measured is from average grade difference. So since we have a 6-foot grade difference from this corner to the other corner of the side, the average would allow us for that 3 feet. So once we measure from 3 feet, which essentially would measure it from our building entrance right now, if we measure from building entrance to the top of the building, we would be at 75.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if possible, you know, I would just like to see that corner be 75 maximum from the existing grade. And
it would be.
I understand.
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
I'm not suggesting changing the height of the building. I mean,
no.
I hope that's clear. I'm just saying create it would be roughly a little bit less than a double high space on the corner that you can come in with restricted access straight on grade. That would be a user amenity. That's all I'm
okay.
asking to be considered.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom. I think you said it better than I did.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
We totally we totally understand. I think the message is very clear. I think we have, Linda, in the past you studied when we're studying the entrance and we're first talking with the city and Lucinda, and we did study our main entry here and the ramping down and stairs and so on. So Linda, I'll we can study that, I think.
Okay.
Yep.
Bernard, I was going to add, can you hear me okay, Bernard, or everybody?
Yes.
Gene here. I was going to add, there may be an opportunity to have, be able to occupy and enter the entry corner here, like we're talking about, and then also have a unit in it as well, which actually offsets as a studio or something like that. But you could also have a double height space here at the corner and accommodate some of the comments that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, so we definitely have this as a note to figure out how to get a controlled entrance at this location that achieves the goal that was set forth here. How about the main entrance? And again, I don't think I landed. The only comment we heard was, I'm sorry, is that you, Bob? That was you that had the comment that likes the more traditional lighting element, but the other one doesn't bother you. Does anyone else have any feedback? Because
I think you should, I honestly think that you should propose what you prefer, assuming that it meets the guidelines, and you can discuss that with staff. It looks to me like they both do. So I think that that's really for you to propose.
Okay.
I would not mind talking about the way to the corners.
Okay.
Yes.
Could we look at the site plan? Because your choice to wrap the brick on the side that I guess is closest to McMaster College kind of confuses me slightly, just from a strategy standpoint. So
I'm going to mark up clearly where we are adding the brick.
Yeah. Sure. I think I understand, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if you can highlight it, Bernard, that'd help.
Yeah. So in red, I'm showing where we are adding the brick right now.
And then show where the brick starts and stops on all the corners.
Yes.
I'm glad you're much more fluid at this program than I am.
Well, that's what I do all day, every day. Okay, and then roughly.
Okay, right, that's what I thought. So I guess my question, I'd be curious what other commissioners think about this, is the strategy to add more brick at that corner that's inside the block, as opposed to adding more brick that's at the southwest corner. I mean, you added more brick, but you didn't come all the way to the end, right?
Yeah.
So, coming all the way across that south face, instead of adding the more corner brick at the what's basically internal to the block.
So more on the outbound elements,
Right.
and less on the inbound. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if I understand, Bernard, the logic, it was that corner of the building where you added it close to McMaster was just because it was close to McMaster. But I'm wondering more from a from a pedestrian experience standpoint. And
So,
unless I'm misunderstanding sightlines, I don't think I am. I don't live that far away from here.
Thanks for the walk,
so
Bernard.
I'm going to not in order not to make everyone dizzy, I'm going to go to that corner quickly in my model, and then we can all look at it.
Okay.
Okay.
And Tom, I think that was based on the feedback from folks wanting the southern view to have more brick. I don't think anyone told us which portion of the southern end of the building they wanted.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm ready, I think.
And what I'm just wondering about the notion of focusing on the areas that are closer to the pedestrian experience.
Yes.
I mean, I may be wrong about that. It was curious to me that you chose to add the brick there, internal to the block.
We kind of wanted to make a picture out of the corners, and because this corner is kind of treated with brick, we figured that in order to add one more level of, well, I don't want to say interest, but sort of to break out the materials into something that doesn't make it feel very massive, that if we were to stop here and then pick up back at the other corner, then it would certainly not make that back corner kind of feel massive. So with that in mind, if I were to be a pedestrian.
Yeah, walk up the sidewalk, because I think you just hit on something. You see that back corner from the right of way. So as you rotate,
Right.
Right. So you'll see that you'll see it there.
Was so that it created that depth, and you see the brick texture further back.
Can you go to the east side of the block?
Yeah.
Do you have all that modeled? The other buildings
Yes,
that are
I
over
do.
there? Okay.
I do. There we go.
I don't know. I mean, I obviously I understand the concept. I'd like others to speak up. It seems like that all of that brick might be better spent closer to the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm. I'm writing it down. That's why I said. Sorry.
The other view, Tom. Are you still
Yeah,
speaking?
well, I'm just thinking that, you know, I think the most sensitive, areas are probably not internal to the block, but more particularly along Pickens Street and Gervais Street.
Can we go more to a street view, kind of where you're at?
Yeah.
From
I mean,
where
right
we
now
are,
we're flying, right?
Yes, and
I mean, Tom brings up a really good point, because I just thought having come on the commission in the middle of this case, but seeing the very original to where we're at, I mean, it looks vast improvement.
yes. So I'm going to go to the corner again of Senate and Henderson.
I'm gonna have to look away soon, Bernard.
Yes, I apologize. I apologized at the beginning. So yeah,
No
so that's the corner. From this point, from this intersection, we don't really see that back corner because of the McMasters in front of it.
I think when we heard to put it on the south side, and then we considered that from the public right of way as you're walking just past the church, or you're sitting in your car on Pickens, and you looked at the side of the back piece, that's why that brick made sense to put there, because it is direct line of sight. We have that nice sidewalk that goes to the residential stair tower. Can you take us to the sidewalk level though, Bernard? Because I think they didn't pick up on the texture and the brick that is at the entire sidewalk level.
Yes, I'll do that.
I'm still trying to understand the vantage point from which you see that, let's call it the McMaster corner so well. Are you talking about from Pickens Street when you look down through the alleyway?
Yeah, if you're on Pickens,
okay.
Your car across the street walking.
But
also,
that's it.
From the University Law School. So if you're at the law school and you're looking over, you're going more brick this way.
Right. But what's in the foreground right now is the corner that we're talking about, rather than that back in the middle of the site. So.
So
I mean,
if you were to walk down, Tom talking about that corner being brick versus that.
Seems much more prominent.
Corner.
Yeah, you know, as Tom, as I hear you talk about this, you know, I feel like I'm being convinced here as well, because I think that corner, you know, maybe there is more value in sort of wrapping that entire side of the Pickens side, as opposed to the inner corner.
I think so. I was just trying to understand. I mean, I know the neighborhood pretty well. I was just trying to understand if there was some kind of view corridor that I was somehow had never noticed, but I think I understand that the answer really is kind of no. So therefore, Gene, that's where I'm back to that thought.
Do you think this is an official comment that you would like to see as a change then, as a collective body?
Others need to chime in, but I mean, to me, I think that the brick should be introduced to places that are most visually prominent from the street.
Okay. So pull it from the back stair tower and corner, and just see if we can create more.
I mean, you might leave a little back there, but I think that this elevation that we were just looking at is, I think, probably the most sensitive elevation.
Okay. All right. And then
I'm going to make a comment here, if you don't mind. Sorry. Yes.
You know, I don't think necessarily turning the brick back into the east facade, like you've shown the dotted line. You probably could spend that brick someplace else more effectively, like maybe on the southeast corner. You know, extend it more on the south side of the southeast corner.
Yes.
You know, but that's mid-block, so even that.
Yeah. And mid-block, and if car care ever went away and another building came up beside us, that's a facade that you wouldn't even see in the future. I don't know if car care has, 50-year plans. And then Bernard, I want to make sure we do the pedestrian walk again, so that we can take a look at where we have the darker brick at the base.
Yeah.
Where we don't have glass, we have that dark brick.
Yes. Yes, I'll go to that one. I'm not going to make everyone busy, so I'm going to do it on my other screen. I'm sorry in advance. Right. So we're talking about this area here, Linda.
Yep. So this is the second brick element that we have on our finished board. It kind of ties that darker tone into the project, but at all pedestrian levels, you're either dealing with storefront glass or you're dealing with this darker brick texture. So I think it's going to be quite a tactile experience as you're walking down the sidewalk and, have this building beside you. I think it is going to read with a lot of texture.
Right. What's the sill? It doesn't look like you really have a sill condition on the top of that darker brick where you have
on the
window
top
openings.
of the brick. There will be a transition there. Yes. Correct.
Then let's walk down the sidewalk to Pickens again. Or Pickens, you got it. There we go.
Right.
I mean, if your question from, as far as I'm concerned is whether it appropriately engages the street, just in terms of form, again, we can't really tell you what to put behind all the glass. I kind of wish we could, but we can't. I think it engages the street well.
It's going to be a fun experience. What HED designs and puts beyond the glass. They've already kind of shown us some potential interior layouts and design, and I think it's pretty engaging.
Good.
Yes, I'm going to try to.
Money on the materials for the interiors is really where it is the public space viewed from inside and out.
Oh, and again, that's outside of our purview, but I think in terms of the. I'm glad to hear that, but we can't tell you what to do behind the glass.
Right. So I can quickly programmatically. This is a generic model, but I can programmatically sort of walk you through what's going on because it's shown on our plan. So you enter into a double height sort of space that on the top it connects you to our second floor full deck, and you've got like a feature stair that takes you up, and then you'll see the main desk will be off straight, and off to the left will be your elevators. And then as you walk up, this is mostly leisure space, resident amenities in a way. This is a clubhouse / playroom. And then as you walk up, there is a library sort of feel space where you could just sit down.
If I could interrupt, I think just that demonstration to me, and I don't mean to beat a dead horse because I think hopefully we've reached a point of resolution, but I think you walk down a city street. I'm here on the Upper West Side of Manhattan today, but you walk down a dense city street and you expect to see conditions where floor elevations don't necessarily match the grade, especially on a hill like this. But just watching your demonstration now, I think that it proves the point that if you can change this so at the corner it resolves in a finished floor that matches the grade, I think it enlivens that experience, much more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else?
Right.
Any other flyovers you might need?
I think, what do other commissioners think? Do you have questions, other comments and concerns?
No, I think that was very helpful.
Yeah, we put quite some effort into creating this because we figured this would be more engaging because we are distant. If we were in person, we could talk and we could sketch and we could throw paper away, but this would be more engaged for people to kind of get close and as tactile as you can be with the materials presented.
I think Gene sounds like he also came up with a solution for the corner, not to completely lose all of that residential revenue and still be able to split the difference, if I understood correctly.
Yeah, I think there might be a way to sort of do both, and I think it's something we just have to study because right now I think we have it's either a 2 or 3 bedroom unit on that corner. So I think maybe there's potential for a studio that has glazing from one major side, and since we have floor to ceiling glass anyway, it gives us a lot of light in a studio. So we'll just have to study that.
Okay.
Yeah, Gene, I've got to consult with property management from a functional standpoint to make sure the building is secure. So however we align that, we need direct line of sight down the hall. We need folks with eyes on the door at all times. So let's look at the mass, let's look at the layout and see where that door would want to be so that it is secured and monitored.
You know, if to that point, if for instance the door needs to move south, in order to, it sounds like it will, in order to achieve that, if you could put an awning over the door that extends beyond the door itself, that extends further north so that it looks more substantial in that facade, you know, those kind of tricks can be pretty successful.
Okay. All right, we've heard maybe 2 or 3 voices from the commission. Is there anyone else that wants to chime in here and provide feedback or concurrence on where we're headed?
Nothing.
Crickets.
Nothing additional.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to, speak now because otherwise I'm going to call this work session to a close unless the applicant team has any other questions or, if commissioners have something they want to say now that I'm about to close the work session. But I think that this is, I think we were very clear in the last hearing what our purview is and is not. I would reiterate that I think of, the DDRC, the guidelines have should, not shall language about building height. I think it would be probably more in keeping with the neighborhood if it were 5 stories, but it's certainly not within your rights to build to this height. And I think it's come a long way since I wasn't in the January hearing, but since I've started to see the design. So appreciate the effort.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Lucinda, next steps for us?
Yeah, so I guess if that's all the commissioners' comments, then I guess we'll just move on to the next public comment period. If everybody's comfortable, y'all have some good direction, and if nobody else has any, I guess the formal work session.
Okay, well, let me just reiterate that I, at this point, am closing the work session. Commissioners, you are, as I said earlier, invited and certainly encouraged to stay on if you would like to hear any remaining public input, but at this point, we're closing the work session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, so John, do we have any more emails that have come in?
Lucinda, we do not at this time have any emails that have come into the system. So.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Andrew, do we have anybody on the line or any voicemails?
I do not have any voicemails, but I do have a speaker that has requested to speak.
Okay.
And here you go.
Thanks.
Hello, Mr. Gottschall.
Are we done?
I believe
Bob-
Andrew's trying to connect someone to the system. So please just wait until he's able to
Yeah,
connect
bear
that
with us
person.
just a moment.
Bob, we're finished with the work session, if that's your question. But we're waiting to see if anybody has comments outside of the work session.
Mr. Gottschall, if you are there, you should be able to speak. Well, perhaps he stepped away from the phone. He does appear to be connected.
Okay, maybe we can just give it another minute.
Correct. And if you are on the phone and you're trying to speak, try to see if your individual phone is on mute. You know, I'm going to try ending his speaking session, and perhaps he can try to reconnect.
Okay, thanks, Andrew.
Hello, Mr. Gottschall, can you hear me? I did try, I have unmuted his line right now. He has not raised his hand, but I figured maybe this way we could get through to him, and I do not seem to hear him.
Well, I'm not sure what else we can do on that, but I will just remind everybody that, you know, any letters, comments, emails that were submitted and that are submitted between now and when packets go out will be included in the packets to the commission before this is, you know, at a public hearing, which of course will also include an opportunity for the public to come and speak. So, you know, this was kind of like an experiment, like Tom said, and something we were just sort of doing as a courtesy because of this new virtual format. So there will be absolutely more opportunities for public comment before any decisions are made. So, you know, technology is what it is, but we're doing our best. And everybody did get a letter from the University Hill and some other folks. So,
So Lucinda, for the project team, are we to submit these modifications to you for review? How does this next step work?
Yeah, we can get together and talk about the deadlines. I mean, you know, the way our advertising deadlines are, I mean, you're going to be on the July agenda for, you know, so that we can advertise the meeting and the item. And we'll just have to work together on when y'all can get the drawings and the revisions turned around to ensure that we have, you know, time to put together the evaluation that goes in packets.
Okay.
I mean, we always allowed a little bit of flexibility there because, I mean, the deadline was like a week or two ago for July. So we don't have the time machine, but we'll certainly be as flexible as we possibly can to give y'all time to turn that stuff around.
Okay, so there is a formal review and then a report that you write before this next meeting. Okay.
Correct, just like the last ones. And it'll probably just, you know, it's just, again, an evaluation that talks about the guidelines, and it'll mostly focus on the items that were discussed in the work session and that were outstanding at the time of the deferral in March.
Okay.
Yep. So has anybody else popped up, Andrew or John?
Lucinda, I'm just double checking that comment page. He did leave a comment earlier this morning, but
okay.
That was prior to him first speaking.
Okay.
And okay, I do see the comment here now. Bear with me just a moment.
Sure.
He says, I had signaled that I wanted to have a comment, but was cut off. While the discussion was interesting, there was no discussion of an amendment to reduce the number of floors and thus the height, scale, and mass. We continue to object to the statement that the building cannot be required to be below 75 feet. Tom Gottschall.
Okay. Thanks.
And let me just triple check to see if there's any other comments. I don't believe there are, but bear with me just a moment. And that is it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Andrew.
And Lucinda, we do
Sure.
not have any additional emails.
Okay, great. Thank you, John. Well, I guess if that's it, I guess
Thank you. Appreciate it, everyone.
Thank you.